Our next speaker is Mr. Everett Browning Sr. He's a retired U.S. Navy chief and president and CEO of Coalition of Minority Business Owners. He's also a former candidate for the Maryland State Senate. So you talk about moving the baton. He is indeed doing that. Mr. Everett, welcome to VETS Talk.
Hey, thank you so much. It's an honor and a privilege. And to my fellow panelists, first, thank you for your service. As I thought about Martin Luther King and the veteran, we kind of realized that a lot of us was in a crossroads in the military. You think about Martin Luther King and being nonviolent and maybe his opposite, his way he looked at the war. But many of us who went into the military realized we had an obligation to open doors, that whether we were the only Black person in that room, that we represented our families. And so I came into the military at 17 years old. Believe it or not, I was a teenage father, had 3 kids by the time I was 21, and I was a single father in the military through my 20-year careers. Now I'm proud to say my youngest son is a lawyer, my daughter has an MBA, and my oldest son has his own company. And that happened because of those principles that King let us understand about sacrifice. That a lot of times, one of my favorite scriptures is Proverbs 13:22, that a good man leaves behind an inheritance for his children's children. And that inheritance is not just finance. It's an understanding of education, a purpose of what are you doing that's bigger than you. A lot of us, when we start our business, and people's first thing, I want to make money. But once you establish your business, I like to talk to people about what are you giving back? How are you giving back? And it's difficult a lot for African Americans, especially when we start businesses, because the support isn't there sometimes. The support from family, from friends, from the community isn't there. And then when you start rolling, everybody kind of shows up and say, well, can you give me a job? Can you help me out? How do you do it? And I tell the panelists, and I'm pretty sure all you have been there before, we have to be committed and accountable to passing that knowledge on. It's a lot easier sometimes to write a check to a nonprofit. It's a lot easier sometimes to show up, but that mentoring is not there. All of us have been through the moments where we didn't know how to figure it out. We were just standing at a crossroads, just guessing. There was no place for us to go to understand, well, how do I learn about overhead? How do I learn about doing my GNA? Who do I call? Do I need a place? How do I get my certification? And it was an island, but that risk, and that's why I'm so honored to be on this panel, to see those of us who many times, I'm assuming like me, felt like giving up and just becoming an employee and going home. It's like, how much money can I lose? The stress it puts on you, your family, and your community. But then that success comes with the joy, but it also comes with accountability. And that is accountability that I think a lot of us got in the military, meaning that it's bigger than us. You're not just accountable to you, you're accountable to that person beside you. You're accountable to that family back home. You're accountable to that mission, and you persevere regardless, even if you understand it. You just put your head down and move in faith. And so today, as we look at Martin Luther King, who just, for most of us, we think about him and what he accomplished, but during this time frame, if you study, it was tough. A lot of people came after him, and it just wasn't racist people. A lot of people in our community came after him who didn't believe in what he was doing or giving support. And the truth is, like many of our heroes, he didn't die a wealthy man. He didn't leave a huge financial inheritance for his family. What he left was a legacy. And I think that's the most important thing as business owners we should focus on, is what are we leaving behind for our families? What are we leaving behind for our communities? Me running for office was me understanding that I had an obligation. I had been blessed, and I knew that I could, have my business, get my nice house, my car, be quiet, and take care of my family and just move. But if you're not giving back, if you're not sitting down and being part of the solution, it's easy to move away and put your kids in a private school and say, hey, I'm not a part of that anymore. But I'm loving what I've heard so far about the other panelists, that they are committed to something bigger. And I think that's what Martin Luther King was about, is, are you committed to something bigger than your own success? What are you truly doing to educate people, to make sure, whether it's kids? I'm also a member of the 100 Black Men of Prince George's County. And that focus there is how we mentor that next generation and realize that a lot of people they don't have parents or anyone in the house who can tell them about financing and savings and investing. And what does it mean to be a business owner? What does it mean to be humble enough to learn? And when you go into the business, you're not going to be a millionaire overnight, and you don't. And I tell people, I didn't go to college right away, but if you want to put in that work, if you want to be dedicated, if you want to call, and I'm right, like for me, I'm writing down everyone's name because I'm going to reach out to everyone on this panel just to, can I buy you a cup of coffee and pick your brain? I mean, I love surrounding myself with a network of people who can provide a way for me to give back. I've been blessed, and I think the obligation is continue blessing. So on this weekend, and Brother Rodney, he's someone who always reaches out to vets, and he inspires me to make sure that I do what I can for those who are not as blessed as me. While I know, like you guys, the hard work I've put in, I don't take it for granted that many people sacrificed for me to be here. There was many people who couldn't open a business up, who couldn't legally, or they couldn't do it because they were under threat. So to be in my position, the door I walked through, I realized that we all have an obligation to open bigger doors. So I'm excited about today and this weekend about what I can do. And so I continue to challenge business leaders to get involved in your community. Whatever you can do, every small step makes a difference. It's not just your money. It's not just your money, but it's how are you mentoring business owners? How are you seeking out kids and other people to let them know what it means to be a part of a team, to be a part of the community? So I appreciate you all today, and I'm so excited for our follow-on conversations about tying business into community, becoming an advocate, and most importantly, fulfilling that dream to make sure that our kids and our kids' kids can live in a world that they have opportunities that even wasn't afforded to us. So thank you, Mr. Melvin.
Thank you so much, Mr. Browning. And I got to tell you, I want everybody to just kind of take a moment and think about this based on what the Everett Browning just said. Imagine if Dr. King had stopped dreaming and thrown in the towel and said, I can't do this. But he didn't. And each one of our members today, our panel members today, they are continuing to move the baton forward. And thank you for continuing to dream.